Alba is a 5-year-old spayed female English Cocker Spaniel weighing between 20 and 30 pounds. She had a mass removed on her left hind limb approximately a year ago. Her length of body, measured from the base of her neck to the root of her tail, is equal to her height at 40 centimetres. According to Kennel Club breed standards, a Cocker Spaniel's height should be slightly longer than the length of body. As her body and height are very similar in length, this is only a minor conformational defect. A study by Sutter et al. In 2008 showed that the average height for a female Cocker Spaniel is between 33.75 and 36.25 centimetres, whilst Alba, standing at 40 centimetres tall, is taller than the average female Cocker Spaniel. On both sides, her scapula measures at 15 centimetres and humerus measures at 13 centimetres. The Kennel Club states that the scapula and humerus should be equal in length. This conformational defect could cause a more acute shoulder angle, potentially leading to a reduction in power within the shoulder muscles. Upon palpation of the left and right shoulder joints, Alba appears to have some hypertonicity of the muscles of the shoulder on her left side, particularly the supraspinatus. This may mean that she moves unevenly, potentially causing shorter stride lengths and stance faces on her left fore than her right fore. On both her left and right scapulohumeral joint, Alba had equal joint angles of 45 degrees when flexed. However, during extension, her right scapulohumeral joint had an angle of 135 degrees, whereas the left had an angle of 175 degrees. She has an angle of 94.8 degrees when standing. Goddard in 2005 found the average angle of the shoulder is 133 degrees at extension and 63 degrees at flexion in dogs. The difference between the two extension angles could cause Alba to have greater ground reaction forces through her left forelimb when she is moving due to the further extension, potentially causing soft tissue damage over time. The higher than average extension and flexion angles could be beneficial as it allows her forelimbs to have a further reach when she is moving, allowing her to increase her stride length and move more efficiently. This also allows for greater shock absorption, helping to reduce concussive forces experienced by the forelimbs. Alba's humerus is 13 centimetres, which is longer than the average of 10 centimetres found for dogs of a similar weight. The humerus should be long enough to place the antebrachium in a caudal position to support the weight of the chest. According to a study of 14 dogs, the mean elbow flexion is 29 degrees and the extension is 152 degrees. At 44 degrees, Alba has reduced elbow flexion and at 159 degrees, greater extension in both forelimbs. Her average carpal flexion angle is 30 degrees, which was found to be the average. Furthermore, when her carpal joint was extended, her right side had an angle of 165 degrees compared to her left side, which was 178 degrees. The average flexion carpus joint angle is 30 degrees. The average joint angle of an extended carpus was 201 degrees, which is greater than the angle shown in Alba's. Kennel Club breed standards state that the Cocker Spaniel should have straight forelimbs with elbows set close to the body. Alba shows medial rotation of the carpal joints, especially of the left forelimb, which would also lead to an increase in stress on the tendons and ligaments that support this joint, such as the lateral and medial collateral ligaments. American Kennel Club breed standards state that the elbow joint should sit directly beneath the highest point of the dorsal border of the scapula, which is not shown in Alba. This causes her body weight to be shifted caudally, adding strain to soft tissue structures on the palmar aspect of the limbs. Uneven wear across articular surfaces in the joints may occur as the legs are placed more cranially under the body. When flexed and extended, there was a difference between the coxofemoral joint angles on either side. In flexion, the right hip joint was 70 degrees, whereas in the left side it was 62 degrees. When extended, the right joint angle was 154 degrees compared to the left side, which was 164 degrees. In a study by Goddard 2005, the average flexed hip joint angle was 46 degrees and the extended hip joint angle was 138 degrees. This is less flexion and more extension than average that Alba shows. She has a right stifle flexion angle of 52 degrees and a left stifle flexion angle of 45 degrees. Her right extension angle was 143 degrees and her left extension angle was 152 degrees. Research from Goddard found that in dogs weighing 20 to 30 pounds, the average flexed stifle angle was 42 degrees and the extended angle was 161 degrees. This shows that Alba's stifle joint has lower average extension, which means that she is likely to have shorter stride lengths in her hind limbs, which is evidenced in her dynamic assessment. According to the American Kennel Club standards for the English Cocker Spaniel, the stifle should be strong and well bent and the hocks should be well let down and there should not be excessive angulation. Alba's stifle appears to be quite straight when standing. A dog with a straight stifle is more likely to suffer from ligamentous ruptures. Goddard found the average extended hock angle in dogs weighing 20 to 30 pounds to be 167 degrees, which is not significantly higher than the angle found in Alba's right hock, but is 12 degrees larger than Alba's left hock extension angle. This may cause Alba to have a shorter stride length in her left hind limb. When viewed caudally, Alba shows some medial hock rotation. Whilst Alba's is not severe, excessive inward rotation of the hind limb increases strain of the soft tissue structures supporting the joint and damage to the cranial cruciate ligament. A plumb line dropped from the ischial tuberosity of the pelvis should touch the dorsal aspect of the hind feet. On Alba, it passes through the middle of the foot rather than touching the front, which shows that her hind feet are slightly forward. This may be due to the slight under-angulation of the stifles, causing the hind limbs to be held more cranially under the body. This is also likely to reduce her hind limb stride length, which can be seen when trotting up. The dynamic assessment for the dog was performed on both hard and soft ground. Typically, hard ground shows any problems with bones, while soft ground is more likely to show issues with soft tissue structures. Stance times and forces exerted by the dog have been shown to differ between breeds due to the velocity of the dog, their size and their body weight. Whilst walking on hard ground, Albert had an average velocity of 122.1 centimetres per second, whereas when she was trotting, she had an average velocity of 214.8 centimetres per second. When walking on hard ground, Alba had an average stride length of 63.8 centimetres in her left fore and 63.83 centimetres in her right fore. In her hind limbs, she had the same average stride lengths for both her right and left limbs, which was 62.2 centimetres. When walking on hard ground, Alba had a stance phase of 57.5% in her left forelimb and 56.9% in her right. In her left hind limb, she had a stance phase of 51.3%, and in her right hind limb, it was 52.9%. Alba is commonly weaker on her hind limbs. On her Gait for Dog Lameness Score, or GLS, her left hind limb measured at 90 and the right measured at 94. Ideally, all paws should read 100 points, with plus or minus 5 points indicating a sound limb. Therefore, Alba may be considered slightly lame in her left hind limb. When trotting on hard ground, Alba had equal average stride lengths of 85.9 centimetres in both her left and right forelimb. In her left hind limb, she had an average stride length of 85.97 centimetres compared to 85.81 centimetres in her right. Alba had a stance phase of 41.6% in her left forelimb whilst trotting and 42.9% in her right. Alba had a stance phase of 34% in her left hind limb and 34.8% in her right. When trotting, Alba showed a greater degree of lameness in her hind limbs than her forelimbs, which was evidenced by reduced hind limb stance phases. In the forelimbs in canter, Alba had an average stride length of 116.03 centimetres in her left fore and 116.88 centimetres in her right fore. The average stride length of her left hind limb was 113.18 centimetres and 114.74 centimetres in the right. The walk, trot and canter on soft ground were filmed using smartphone cameras, which were then analysed on Canovia to determine the stride length and flight arc. 3 separate stride lengths for each limb in each gait were measured and an average was found. When walking on soft ground, her hind limbs showed bigger differences in average stride lengths, with her left showing 61.83 centimetres and her right showing 65.42 centimetres. This is consistent with findings from the Gait 4 force mat of the stance phase percentage and amount of force put through each hind limb that the left hind is weaker than the right in all gaits. When trotting on soft, Alba showed deviations in her average stride lengths in her hind limbs, showing 3.86 centimetres shorter on her left hind when compared to her right, with her left stride length at 85.37 centimetres and her right stride length at 89.23 centimetres. The right and left forelimbs only showed slight variation in stride length, with her left having a stride length of 83.56 centimetres and her right having a stride length of 84.45 centimetres. Cantering on soft ground was the only gait to show large deviations in the forelimb stride lengths and similar stride lengths in the hind limbs. She showed average forelimb stride lengths of 115.1 centimetres in her left and 117.74 centimetres in her right. Her hind limbs showed average stride lengths of 115.75 centimetres in her left and 115.4 centimetres in her right. In all gaits, the dog should move on 2 tracks. Alba is shown to trot on 3 tracks, with her left forelimb and right hind limb on 1 track. Alba also shifts her pelvis to the left when moving in both walk and trot. However, this is more prominent when she is trotting. This can be known as crabbing. Overall, the static assessment of Alba is consistent with the Kennel Club breed standard. She shows some conformational defects in the static assessment and some minor issues in the dynamic assessment, which may require further investigation.